We have a big show for you right now, including absolutely bombshell new allegations, the confession of sex crimes in writing from an associate known for his links to Matt Gaetz. It's a big story, and we have that as well as Mr. Gaetz's denial coming up. Also, President Biden's 100th day in office is today. You may have heard about that. And we look at where he's headed as well as the undoing of Trumpism. But right now, the developing news in the criminal probe against Rudy Giuliani after his apartment and office were raided by the feds, after his phones and computers were seized, and after he's now speaking out. Giuliani is breaking his silence, and this is fascinating. He is, of course, the former prosecutor facing a raid by the office he used to run. He is the lawyer to the former president, although they've had a falling out. And he is apparently looks like a subject of this probe. So he is now speaking out for the first time in depth with details about that raid, and he denies any wrongdoing.
I have never represented a Ukrainian national or official before the United States government. My sole concentration from the beginning here, Tucker, was to find evidence that would prove what I knew, that he was innocent of Russian collusion. He did exactly what a president should do with the president of Ukraine. He asked him to investigate a vice president. They invaded, without telling me, my iCloud. They took documents that are privileged. The Justice Department spied on me.
Now, some of that is Giuliani's rebuttal and defense. Some of it is true. Indeed, we are learning that the feds did go into the iCloud to basically take or surveil information from Rudy Giuliani. All of this, though, according to public information, is lawful, not some sort of illegal or covert spying. Giuliani also referring to how federal investigators took basically 7 or 8 of his electronic devices. Now, he claims that he also made an offer to them. Now, this is on Giuliani's word, but he claims that he had Hunter Biden's hard drives in his apartment, as one does, and that he offered that to the feds. Now, there isn't any outside verification of this. So this is one of those stories where it's newsworthy what the feds are doing and what Giuliani's saying, but we're not here reporting on our ability to verify what's in his apartment. Here you go.
At the end of the surge, when they had taken about, I'd say, 7 or 8 electronic items of mine, which is what they took, and 2 of someone else's, they weren't taking the 3 hard drives, which, of course, are electronic devices. They just mimic the computer. I said, well, don't you want these? And they said, what are they? I said, those are Hunter Biden's hard drives. And they said, no.
Now, in court, this would be called hearsay, but it's certainly interesting and newsworthy. This is Giuliani's rendition of what he said the Fed said in response to his Hunter Biden offer. No. Now, we'll learn a lot more about this if this process goes forward. If there were to be, for example, further filings or indictments or a trial, we'll get the Fed side of the story. That's Giuliani's side. We do know, though, that a judge approved this raid based on the evidence that Giuliani is searchable, that there was reasonable suspicion that he has the evidence of a crime in those locations. Now, the scope of what they can seize can be quite targeted. Now, as for Giuliani's brazen attitude about his dealings in Ukraine, first reported by the Washington Post, also confirmed by NBC News, he was briefed all the way back by the FBI. It's the same arm of the government that would deal with raids, but not the same people. And the FBI tried to warn him in 2019 that he was being targeted specifically by a Russian intelligence operation. This was going on in the context of him trying to gather some sort of dirt on the Biden family for a plot that ultimately got Donald Trump impeached. The Washington Post reporting that infamous trip to Ukraine in December of that year occurred after this briefing where they were saying, hey, be careful. These efforts, this Russian-backed efforts trying to make you, Rudy Giuliani, a stooge. Meanwhile, another individual who ran this same famed independent office, the Southern District of New York, Preet Bharara, he says, based on the available public evidence, Giuliani is in deep trouble. Now, I mentioned that office, and we have a special expert with experience there tonight. Danya Perry is a former SDNY prosecutor, and Nick Ackerman is a former Watergate special prosecutor, and back in the day, served in the SDNY as well, and overlapped and worked with Giuliani. Good to see you both.
Thank you.
Good to see you, Ari.
Nick, do you believe that this raid means there is bad news for Rudy Giuliani and he's at risk of indictment?
Yeah, I think it does mean it's bad news. It's very difficult to get a judge to approve a search warrant on a lawyer. Never mind a well-known lawyer like Rudy Giuliani, who is the former mayor of the city of New York, was the lawyer to President Trump. The government has to go in and provide very specific facts justifying that a crime was committed. And under these circumstances, where it is such a high-level person, you would expect that the Department of Justice wouldn't go in there but with the most refined and detailed facts of criminal activity. And once you do that, you have to ask, well, what kind of evidence is it? It's probably pretty decent evidence considering that they're going in for the search warrant on this individual. And then you've got to ask, well, how close are they to actually being able to indict and convict beyond a reasonable doubt?
Danya, what did you think of what we heard here from Mr. Giuliani, who famously knows his way around this office and referred to that in the interview, his attempt both to minimize the scope of the search and then also tell that story about what he says he offered them?
Sure. Well, it's a little hard to decipher because it's fundamentally gibberish. I mean, I think my first year criminal procedure law students have a better understanding of the fundamentals of criminal law than the former U.S. attorney. This was not an illegal or unconstitutional search, as he also said in his Fox interview last night. The fact that the feds had access to this sort of iCloud, pointing skyward, is not unusual and is exactly the procedure they should have followed. And this was, by the books. And so, it's not a defense. And he was, as you point out, the U.S. attorney who was charged with overseeing, no doubt hundreds of search warrants under his watch. So he knows or should know how it works. And his offer to provide this Hunter Biden, I'm sorry, he also confused, I think, Tucker Carlson and Hunter Biden in his interview. But his offer to provide that hard drive, first of all, as you say, is just his own account. But it would not surprise me at all if the agents refused that offer. They did not have a warrant for anything other than the very specific electronic devices that they seized. So I think that also would have been right by the book.
Yeah, you make an important distinction there, which for viewers matters, which is Giuliani's making it sound like, oh, they wanted devices. I got all kinds of devices. Come on in, take it. When in fact, legally, they can only take the devices that are tied to the investigation. In this case, apparently tied to Mr. Giuliani. So if he's got a friend's device or a Hunter Biden device, or someone was over for a cocktail and they left a phone on the table, the warrant doesn't necessarily give the government that level of powers. It almost sounded like he wanted to sandbag them. Again, that's just my interpretation based on what was a little bit of a bizarre response. Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.